Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm going to give the intro to this, and then I'll hand it off to Ethan to talk about the network. So, we are here today to talk about the Algiers Service Improvement Plan. You may have heard of this, you may have been involved in an earlier phase. We started speaking with the public and the riders starting this summer during phase one. Uh, the idea of this project is to see what we can do to improve service on the West Bank, given the resources that the RTA has right now. So this has been a three-phase plan. Each phase has had an outreach uh, portion of it. So during phase one, we went out, we rode the bus, we spoke with riders, we had a rider survey where we asked people what their priorities would be for improving service. Then we took the answers that we got from phase one and that survey. And during phase two, we came up with two options that we showed to the public to start conversations. We said, what if we changed the buses like this? How would that affect you? And had a more back and forth about that. And then based on that feedback, we moved into phase three. And that's what we're presenting today is the recommended network that came out of those first two phases. So this is what we are saying would make service better for the most number of people on the West Bank, in Algiers specifically. So, phase one, uh, as I mentioned earlier, phase one was just our visioning and goals phase. So, just a reminder of what our current network looks like. We have four bus routes on the West Bank. They all come every 40 minutes and they all serve Wilty Terminal in Gretna. Then three of those routes also service downtown to the main library. Another thing that's important to note when planning a network is where we have the most ridership. So this is a map of Algiers and the neighborhoods there that have the most. We have Garden Oaks is our highest ridership neighborhood by far. We have a ton of riders coming from there. And then we also have quite a few riders coming from Tall Timbers and Forest Isle area, as well as the Cutoff. We also have some low ridership areas where we have service. Maybe we even have pretty good service, but we're not seeing very much ridership. And so those areas include Aurora along MacArthur and Woodland, as well as the sort of the back half of General de Gaulle. And then on Pace and Holiday, we also have service, but see very little ridership as you get closer to the river. There's also a couple important transfer points on the West Bank. So we have the Wilty Terminal, which I mentioned earlier. So all of our buses pass by Wilty Terminal. This makes the trip downtown a bit longer, maybe 5 to 10 minutes longer for folks who live further out in Algiers. But there are a lot of people that use that stop to transfer to other buses, or they transfer to Jefferson Transit, which also services Wilty Terminal. So we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about redesigning the routes. Uh, it's sort of we don't want to mess up anybody's trip who's transferring there, but we do want to make trips faster for other folks. And then we also have the Algiers Point ferry. The ferry comes every 30 minutes. We have a lot of people that transfer between the 103 and the ferry right now. So something else to keep in mind. For that survey that I mentioned, we got about 330 respondents. Most of those were folks who rode at least once a week. A lot of them were daily riders. When we asked them what their priorities were for how to make service better, we heard first off, they want the bus to come more often, so that's more frequent service. They also really value quicker trips to downtown, especially for those folks living in Cutoff or in the Tall Timbers area. And then we also heard from a lot of riders, especially in Old Algiers and Algiers Point, that they actually need to transfer to get to a grocery store. So that's a real pain. Can't buy ice cream if you don't know when your second transfer is going to come. So that is something that we looked really closely at. And then we also heard from maybe service industry workers, folks who work third shift jobs, that they want more late night or early morning service. We also asked them what the most important places that they would like to prioritize getting to on the West Bank, and we heard the Walmart on Berman, as well as the Holiday Square and Algiers Plaza shopping center where that Aldi is. Used to be Winn-Dixie. And then Algiers Point and the ferry also came up. So based on those comments, we came up with four service goals, and that was more frequent service, quicker trips to downtown, better service to grocery stores, and then maintaining access to those important transfer points like Wilty Terminal. Now, we want to improve service, but we also have these constraints, and one of those is that we are not adding any resources, so we don't have more buses. We still only have those 11 buses that currently run in Algiers. We also have the same operating budget that we do right now. And then some other factors that are outside of our control are the road conditions and the way that the streets are laid out. There's only so many streets that we can actually run buses on. And then, of course, the traffic congestion that everybody gets stuck in on the bridge, we also do, and that can cause the buses to be late. Um, are you going to talk about this one, Ethan?
Yeah, so with all of that taken into account, we essentially took what the writers had been saying are their goals and what their idea for what service would look like, what better service would look like on the West Bank. So we took those goals and then we made these two options for people to choose from. And with those options and the existing service, we really spurred those conversations with people about, this would make my trip great. This would really ruin my trip. Um, in different circumstances for different people, but a lot of that is really to get out what these deal breakers are from people and all of the benefits that they would be seeing from an improved network. So with that, we took all those public comments and sort of synthesized these two options. Uh, took a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one, a little bit from everywhere to make our recommended network, which looks like this. And this is very similar to our current service, just on first glance, but there's a lot of key differences. Looks very similar because we can only operate on the roads that we operate pretty much. But the main differences are that all of the routes that travel to downtown now will be coming every 30 minutes instead of every 40 minutes. The bus that goes down General Meyer will not go end to end all the way from the point to cutoff. It will split at Cable. And the two routes, 114 and 115 in this case, do not service Wilty Terminal. And that's in order to get faster trips to downtown for our main riding communities, especially those that are commuting to work on the bus. With this, we're creating also this transfer location. Um, not much of a built out hub necessarily, but something where you're not having to ride out of your way in order to make a transfer onto a different route in Algiers. This would be at the intersection of MacArthur and Holiday, right by the new Aldi location, the old Winn-Dixie, and the Algiers Regional Library. And we also will have the Route 115 will resume that direct service to Walmart. Right now, it's only serviced by the Algiers local, but this new routing would allow for more of our staunch ridership communities to be able to get to Walmart and back to their houses really directly. And as we were talking about earlier, one of the biggest benefits from this recommended network is that all of our communities in Algiers will have access to a grocery store in one seat ride. We can't necessarily guarantee that it will be going to the Walmart on Berman, but we did make sure to maximize that access as much as possible. But we can say that you can get to a grocery store in one seat ride no matter what. And that's really to make sure that those trips that are done out of necessity are really able to be done easily and that we're not asking people to do any sort of laborious transfers for things like carrying their groceries. And this slide talks a little bit about the job access to downtown in the morning. Right now, we are seeing slower trips to downtown because we're making those deviations for every route to go to Wilty Terminal. But with this, we would have a lot of those further out communities would be able to have that, more express route. Riders in Garden Oaks, Tall Timbers along Tullis, and also in the cutoff would save anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes to their trip to downtown. So looking at if you're in Garden Oaks, your trip to downtown is about 30 minutes right now. It would be closer to about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on traffic. So a lot of this is, being going to be a big time saver for people. And the way that we quantify this is with job access. So the amount of jobs that you can access within 1 hour. And with this, we've seen gains of about 41,000 people are able to have more access to jobs after this recommended network compared to today. And only about 1,100 people have lost that access. And that is in areas specifically where we're not seeing much ridership anyway. So we're not totally convinced that those people are really relying on the bus like that. Really trying to disperse our resources where people are needing it more. And this is what we have as sort of a report card, as we're calling it. The dark green plus is saying that we've improved that goal that people have stated, the Algiers riders had stated that they would like to be achieved. The light green circle is saying that you had it before and it's being maintained. The light orange circle is saying that you wanted it and you currently don't have it, but we were not able to achieve it with this routing. And that dark orange minus is saying that you have decreased actually. So what you can see here is that, uh, and I didn't say this, but all of the neighborhoods are sorted by our highest ridership to our lowest ridership neighborhoods. And what we're really seeing is that these high ridership neighborhoods are getting the biggest benefits in those quicker trips to downtown and more frequent service. But in the specific case of cutoff, we can see that that's where the direct trade-off is really coming of the sort of reduced access to local trips in Algiers, with no one-seat ride to Wilty Terminal and no one-seat ride to the ferry. These trips are still possible. It's just that they now require transfer, but what instead we're focusing on is trying to maximize the benefits for most people's trips as much as possible. And so I'm going to go quickly route by route just to talk about some of the benefits to them. In this case, with the new 103, as we're calling it, all of these route names and numbers are subject to change. These are just our placeholders for now. The 103 General Meyer in this case does not service cutoff. Instead goes to that transfer location that we talked about near the Aldi and that shopping center. And what this would really allow is for residents in Old Algiers, specifically McDonough and Whitney, that currently do not have a one-seat ride to a grocery store and are being forced to make transfers. They would have that access to that central location with that Aldi. And we do have new routing in Federal City in response to the new senior housing that's built there and the new market rate housing that will be built there in the next year. And one major thing with this too is that the route will be coming every 30 minutes now. And with that, we are able to schedule it a little bit better with the ferry terminal. And that way you can more seamlessly get off of your bus, go right onto the ferry and go downtown. Or in the reverse, you can get right off the ferry, get on the bus, and head back to your house. So with the Algiers local, this route very closely resembles the 114B as it is right now, but it would be only servicing locally in Algiers. And we are making a slight deviation on this route when traveling away from Wilty Terminal to right in front of Walmart on Berman, just so that people will have that front door access to Walmart. We'll be dropping off at that shelter right there on Berman so that people are a little bit more comfortable getting on their trip to Walmart. We will not have bus service on Pace Boulevard or on Holiday Drive because of the changes, but that service on Holiday is shifted to cable, and that is because it grants more access to people that are able to walk to it. Holiday is a little bit difficult because one side of the road is not able to be accessed by most of the neighborhood. But with the 114, what we're seeing here is that because the 103 does not go to cutoff, we're able to get a quicker trip to downtown for those people that live in back of Cutoff and further down General Meyer. They're able to skip past Algiers Point. We heard a lot of riders that were saying that they didn't like having to ride all the way around the point in order to get to downtown. And they also would skip Wilty Terminal, so they wouldn't have to make that deviation down there. And the 115, as we're calling it, is sort of closely resembled the older 115 if you rode the bus a few years ago. This would have quicker trips to downtown for especially our main three ridership communities in Cutoff, Garden Oaks, and Tall Timbers Forest Isle. Because they're skipping Multi Terminal, it's a little bit more of a direct route. We're able to get, as quick of a service as we can deliver for local bus service. With that, we have designed this network with some key constraints that we currently are facing. Um, some of the routes may look like they're winding and turning in places that don't really make sense, but that's because there are these constraints that we're facing, specifically one of them being the lack of a transit traffic signal at Berman and Berman, right there by the pair of shelters near Waldenburg. Um, we're not able to turn left coming away from Garden Oaks because there is no signal there and our buses are exposed, and it makes it unsafe for our operators and our riders. So we are in conversations with the state and DPW about trying to alleviate some of these constraints. But for right now, we've designed the system with these constraints already in mind, but just know that there is potential for us to make the service even better because if we solve these constraints. And then our next steps. So right now we're in our live webinar and broadcast. Uh, we have a public review period that started when we officially announced this at Operations Committee. That was January 8th. We are allowing a month of public review of the recommended network. And we will be completing a Title VI analysis, equity analysis, and that will go into a board report that will be for around March 24th. And then after that board report, if the board chooses to adopt it, we will have some coordination to attend to that will be internal within RTA, but also having those conversations with the city and also with the state, with the city of New Orleans and DOTD. So again, this is our webinar. We will have this recorded and posted online after for anyone to view, regardless if you attended live or not. But know that also all of our materials will be posted on norda.com/Algiers if you wanted to share this to anybody. And if you have further questions and comments, you can visit, again, norda.com/Algiers, or you can email algiersservice@norda.com